Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Robert, and this is a solo review of Dragons Down. This review is gonna be for the base game contents only. I did not back this Kickstarter campaign originally, but I did a late Pledge Manager pre-order from the publisher. My experience with the game so far has been about 10 games in total, and each of them has been about an hour long. This game is inspired by the classic Magic Realm board game, but keep in mind that I have no prior experience with that game. Although for many years I've been interested in trying it out, I just never pulled the trigger in buying an old copy or printing a PMP copy of the game. And now let's move on to a game overview. Okay, so what happens in Dragons Down? This is a sandbox adventuring game, and the goal is scenario based, but typically for the most common scenario, which is open sandbox, you're gonna create a randomly generated map, you're gonna pick a lineage and class, and you're going to have a limited amount of turns to collect a certain amount of legend points, okay? And along the way, you're going to face many dangers. There's going to be monsters that appear as you explore the land, and there's also going to be places that you're going to find where you can find loot, like regular items, legendary items. You're also going to be able to learn spells and complete missions for the different vendors in the civilized locations. Okay, the game is action based, so you're gonna have typically 4 actions per turn, and you can see here some of the actions that are available to you. And there's classes that are focused on fighting, there's classes that are spellcasters, there's classes that focus on trying to avoid combat, and the nature of the random maps being generated will make it very different every time. There's 3 terrain packs included with the base game. There's the Wicked Woods, Cruel Caves, and Malevolent Mountains. And you can play when you set up just with one terrain pack, which will make for a smaller map, okay? Or you can combine up to 3 terrain packs, which will increase the map size. So what you see there is a randomly generated map just using these two terrain packs. Okay, and the terrain packs have different sites which create more variety for setup. They'll add a bit of variables to how some of the locations that you could find are laid out. Okay, and there's also many combinations of characters, lineages, and classes. Now classes are also double-sided, so that you get variable starting items. Okay, and there's also a pretty substantial decks of items, treasure, deep treasure, and spells. Okay, you'll find armor, weapons, exotic items. So all sorts of items that you can either use to enhance your character and build it, or you can also sell it for gold, or just by virtue of finding items, you can collect legend points and fame points. Now, fame points are a form of legend points. If you manage to survive at the end of the game, some of these fame points translate to legend points, but this is the most precious resource in the game. You're trying to find as much of that as possible, and it'll trickle out as you complete certain tasks. Okay, there's many ways in which you can find those. You can find them again by completing missions, by finding places, by finding epic loot, by learning spells, if you play multiplayer, by killing heroes. So the game offers many ways for you to find those legendary points. Now there's a very interesting combat element that is included in this system, where you have when you end your turn, there's a chance that monsters will spawn on your spot, okay, in the map. And when they do, you can either try to hide, you can roll to see if you hide, or you can jump into combat. When you do, you might face one or more monsters, and they come with their own stats that mimic the human or player stats. So they'll have a certain amount of damage they do, they have an attack speed, and also a movement speed. And before the attacks are resolved, during your combat turn as the player, you need to place these cubes, which there is a limited amount of cubes that you can place each round. You can place these might cubes on weapons to attack. These brown cubes help you determine attack or movement speed. And you have to puzzle with how you want to place your cubes, and you have to keep in mind that there's a chance that the monsters will flip when you roll this die. Okay, so if they flip, they might throw a curve at that plan that you had with the way that you set up your cubes. Okay, so you set up your cubes and the monster might flip, and then the way that you adjusted your attack speed and movement might not work as well anymore. So there's always that risk of the monster flipping, which keeps combat tense. Okay, but yeah, this world is pretty brutal, and if you're gonna fight, you have to be very calculating, because you could just one wrong die roll and it could be over for you. All right, so first I want to comment on the components. So overall, I think this is a lovely production. I do have a couple things I want to point out. So first is the insert. So the insert does not accommodate sleeved cards, unfortunately, and it also doesn't accommodate all of the tiles for the base game. And I can't picture this insert working if you acquire the expansions. You're probably gonna have to ditch the insert. So the insert, unfortunately, I think is not that great. But other than that, the cards are pretty good quality. Also, these I also have to comment on these. These are very, very well thought out. At least the insert might not be the best, but I like the trays for the monsters, for the poker chips. You can separate, each tile set has its own set of monsters that come with them, so you can keep all of the monsters that belong to each terrain set separate. So very well done in that front. The decision to use poker chips for the monsters and the player tokens is great. I just very good job there, very sleek. They do feel pretty high quality. And now there is one thing that I think is missing here sorely, and that's player aids as far as the components go. Okay, the game includes the rulebook, and then there is on the back there's a bit of a turn summary, but this game could have really benefited from some player aids, especially with that includes iconography or some actions. Okay, like all of the different actions that you see there. There's actually a lot going on with those actions, like explanations, very detailed explanations of those actions, and it would have been nice to have them at a glance. Other than that, I think it's a great production. I just think that the one part, the couple spots where it missed the mark was the insert and the sore lack of player aids. Now let's talk a bit about presentation. So first of all, the game uses AI art, and they're pretty open about that with this project. And honestly, I did not mind as much as I thought I would. I kind of got used to it over time, and it's not that distracting. I've seen some pretty bad use of AI art in games. The game definitely would have benefited from handcrafted art, but I understand this would have been a huge undertaking. But I think the cover is one of them where it's a bit more obvious that the game uses AI, at least for like the item cards. It's just an isolated object, so there's no like weird compositional issues going on. The portraits for the lineage cards and the class cards work pretty well. Now, on the presentation aspect, I gotta say that I wish they had chosen different card backs for Deep Treasure and Treasure, right? So they share the same card back, and this made it a bit more difficult to sort the cards at the end of the game. They should have just given it like a different tone or something, just any kind of distinction other than the name. The game, other than that, is very clear, like the use of typography and iconography. It's very well done, very clear. I did not have any issues, reading the parsing and reading the contents of the table, not in the slightest. Very good job with the player board and the cards, and the iconography with the lineage and class cards, and even with the poker chips. The information, the numbers are sufficiently big. So good job overall. Now I want to make a quick comment on the rulebook and for how much you have to grasp with this game, which I'll get into detail later. It's not the worst. You're definitely gonna have to spend a bit of time going to Board Game Geek and asking some questions, because there are a couple concepts here that I think could have been worded a bit better. There are a couple of things that I read that were not exactly easy to interpret. Okay, so they did require some extra clarification. But the rulebook is pretty good. It includes a item manifest, so every item in the game that is iconography driven, there's full explanations that you can find. There's full iconography for everything, so it's a very comprehensive rulebook. So as far as these indie Kickstarter rulebooks, very well done. But I'm sure that it'll get better with further versions, more updated versions with time. Okay, so first, I want to bring up my couple of cons, and one I already mentioned. I just wanted to make sure I emphasize that, and that's the lack of player aids in this game is pretty severe. Okay, and I think it's imperative that if you decide to get this game, since it doesn't really include any player aids other than the mini summary of actions on your player board, that you print out some of the materials that are out there already. This rulebook is kind of difficult. The rulebook that comes with the game is a bit difficult to navigate, like when you need to find certain things. So you need player aids to have anything resembling a smooth experience. All right. Now, the other thing is the learning curve with this game, right? So it definitely is an obstacle and is not for the faint of heart, all right? I have played my fair share of complex games, and this is up there. I would say that I really think that this is the most uh, one of the most complex games that I have played for sure. There's a lot going on, and the rulebook, it's serviceable, but it'll definitely warrant close study, multiple reads, taking notes, watching videos. You're gonna have to put a lot of effort in order to play this anywhere anything resembling properly. All right, especially I in the subject of combat and casting spells. There's tons of things going on with that, and there's certain things that the rulebook doesn't spell out for you. Okay, especially when it comes to casting spells, there's tons of things as a player that you have to infer. All right, that the rulebook doesn't spell out. And I'm not saying that the information is there, but you have to connect the dots in ways where the rulebook should have included more like gameplay examples, or like a strategy guide, like just something like a player guide or something like that. Like the rules are there technically, it's just uh, the way that they're scattered or presented. You kind of have to piece things together in a way that I'm not used to from playing other games. So a point being, you're gonna have to put a lot of effort to learn this, more so than most games out there. All right, that's my only warning. But now, moving on to the positives, I think that all of that effort, which I did have to put a ton of effort, okay, figuring out how to play this, this is a true sandbox, okay? There's some games in my collection that feel sandboxy. The closest one is Explored, okay? And I need to revisit that and see how it compares to this, because I haven't played it in a couple of years. But this is, until I play Explore It again back to back with this and compare it, I would say that this is the sandboxiest board game that I've played. It's a true sandbox, and it has offered me a sense of exploration like no other board game that I have played. The game sets up within a couple minutes, which is a great virtue of the game. You just shuffle the map tiles and you pick a lineage and a class, and that's pretty much it. You shuffle these decks that you see here, grab the cubes for your character, and you're good to go. It sets up, once you know what you're doing, within 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to be all set, and you're going to get, once you have a grasp of the rules, you should be able to finish a game within an hour. Now, there's tons of games out there that have tons of components, very thick decks, like 100 tokens that increase variability, right? With the setups, and they make your game not feel the same ever with every play. But the way that this game works, though, yes, the component quantity is there, but the way that the tiles, the way that exploration works in this game, with how the terrain the terrain sets combine and how you discover locations, it's set up in such a specific way that it it feels like there's more permutations. Like it's like it takes that variety element with setup, the variability, and it takes it to like the nth degree. It's just incredible, like with the way that the maps are generated. Because I don't think I mentioned this earlier. So I've mentioned that these are double-sided, these are double-sided, and these, but the map tiles are also double-sided. So it's infinite, like it's just infinite how many different maps you can create with this, and just even just with one terrain set. Okay, but when you combine them, like the possibilities of maps that you could create. Because the thing with some of these adventuring games too is that they have a static map like the older ones, but even newer ones, like they pale in comparison because of how they're double-sided, and because of when you explore how different locations can come out. It's just mind-blowing how much variety this pulls off with seemingly less components, just by virtue of how it's set up, the way that exploration works. So yeah, the replayability and the variability is just, and the permutations is just, this system is exceptional in that front. Okay, and keep in mind that I've only experienced the base game. I did not order the expansion out of skepticism. I didn't know if I was gonna like this, and to be fair, the expansion is not exactly cheap. It's almost the same cost as the base game, but I've barely felt like I've scratched the surface with the base game. Because not only is the way that the map is generated, that's just so much replayability there, it's also the combinations of lineages and um, classes. And remember, they're double-sided. Like I'm telling you, it's just crazy how much variability there is here. There's the play styles of the elf druid and the knight, the human knight that I played in my playthroughs, they could not be any more different. And there's pretty substantial decks of each type, so the loot that you're gonna see every game is not the same. And even if you keep the same map, like you can just spend some time building a map and just play it again. Simply keep switch out a different character or enter the map from another angle. I guarantee you, even if it's the same map, it'll feel completely different on a second playthrough. Now, one little comment, one downside of how variable the maps are is that there are going to be some map configurations where certain areas will be inaccessible. Okay, it can happen, and there's going to be also some circumstances in the game also later on where map tiles get flipped and they might become inaccessible. And if you're not the type of character that can flip tiles, there are certain ways in which you can do that in the game. Or if you don't have a spell where you can fly and think or rotate tiles, there's ways of manipulating tiles through abilities in the game. But if you're not one of those characters, you might be locked out of certain quests, which might suck a bit. But like I said, there are many ways that you can compensate in situations like that. There's many other ways for you to gain legend points and fame points. But do keep that in mind. When you generate maps randomly, there are going to be some wonky map configurations, and you're going to have to adapt based on the map that you get. But anyway, with all of that said, I am happy that I have got to experience Magic Realm to some degree. So this is a modernized version of that, and I'm happy that a product exists where I can experience it to some degree. I unfortunately can't give you the perspective of how it compares to the other one, its source inspiration, but from what I read, most people agree that it does a great job of capturing the essence of Magic Realm. Alright, so folks, in conclusion, I have to commend Scott for the job that he did translating his passion for Magic Realm into this product, so that mere mortals like me who never got a chance to play it, or that simply grew way after its heyday, can get to experience something akin to it. And I can definitely say that this is a very unique game and one of the best adventuring games that I have ever played. It is an insanely varied sandbox with permutations and variability like no other in my collection. And the sandbox feel and the exploration and the stories that this game can tell, there's nothing that comes close to what I've played in the sense of this, other than explore it. Like I said, I need to go back and forth, but with that and compare it a bit more closely. But one thing that this edges over explore it 100% is the fact that you don't have to control a party of characters. You only have to control one, and your story that you create with your character, it feels much more personal because of that. And the upkeep, you don't have to deal with the upkeep of multiple characters. It's your character, no, not a party. And I do typically, for these adventuring games, I lean more towards games that let you control one character and tell your own story. And this game is one of the most insane sandboxes that I've ever experienced, and not anything that I thought was possible in board game form. So if you're willing to overcome the learning curve for this, you don't mind the AI art, and you're willing to print out some supplemental player aids, I can wholeheartedly recommend this, even at just the base game level. It's not exactly a budget priced, but it'll definitely pack a punch for content, and I've barely scratched the surface with just the base game. Imagine if you add the expansion. Alright everyone, so I hope that this helped you decide if this game is for you or not. And if you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.